Well, good evening. Let's give folks a few minutes. Not a few minutes. Let's give them a minute to just get in here. I don't want to waste too much time on this whole thing. Finish getting my little deal set up here so y'all can hear me good. And so I can get my shit together. All right. So listen, here is a few things I wanted to cover. Socialism. I don't want to keep telling people they're socialist if they're really not socialist, and is what's going on today really socialism that we see in the Democratic Party? I'm told, when I bring it up that Democrats are not socialist. I'm told they do not have a socialist agenda. I'm told that if I don't agree with the agenda, that I'm selfish, which is kind of an oxymoron. And then I'm told I don't want to help people. That's not what I'm trying to do. That I'm socialist, or that I am selfish because I want to keep my money in my pocket and take care of my family. I'm told that I'm not Christian because that's what Jesus taught. Yes and no. We'll touch on that. There's many different reasons people think socialism is a good thing. Mostly because they're promised all kinds of free stuff, but I don't think anybody or most people don't really have an idea of what socialism truly is. So I wanted to define that. There's many different reasons people think socialism, again, is a good thing, and I think that there are as many people that think that as there are that are suffering from it. So let's look a little bit into what's going on, and I want to dive a little bit into socialism versus capitalism. We're going to touch on capitalism. I don't want to go too much into it because it's pretty much self-explanatory, and maybe straighten a few things out about what we're headed for. Be it socialism or not, in my opinion, it's a threat to our country and our liberties. No matter what you call it, it's not what our country was founded on. So let me blow this up a little bit so I can actually read some of my notes here. And I want to thank God for Wikipedia. Wikipedia, my go-to source, and that's where most of these sources are coming from. So what is socialism? In short, Wikipedia says it's an economic and political system. If you think you know what that is, listen close. It's an economic theory of social organization. It states that the means of making, moving, and trading wealth should be owned or controlled by the workers. This means the money made belongs to the workers who make the products, rather than a group of private owners. People who agree with this type of system are called socialists. Well, duh. Okay, so socialists believe that everything in society is made by the cooperative efforts of the people and citizens. I can agree with that. So that doesn't sound so bad. I could almost buy into that because it sounds as though I am still in control of the money that I earn and work for. However, beware, because there's many different forms of socialism, and I want to cover some of that. I'm not going to go in depth on all of them, but I am going to cover some of them. So another form of socialism, collectivization. I don't know why that screwed me up a little bit. Anyway, another kind of socialism is collectivization, and in that system, not much different than the first. Money and goods are shared more equally among the people, with the government in control. In theory, the system results in the gap between classes getting smaller, bridging that gap between the rich and the poor, if you will. With the state helping the nation's poorest people, while the richest agree to higher taxes and economic restrictions. So it's not eliminating wealth for the wealthy, and it's not necessarily making the poorest folks in the nation, bringing them up a step. It's just the wealthy giving more money to the government to put into social programs and what have you. So on the surface, again, something I might even be able to get on board with. However, we're going to cover some of these theories. So that's collectivization, socialism, and then the democratic socialism, another form of socialism, which is more along the lines of what it is that we are experiencing in the Democratic Party, in our country, what they're headed for. So democratic socialism is defined. It's a belief that both the economy and society should be run democratically, to meet public needs, not to make profits for a few. To achieve a more just society, many structures of our government and economy must be radically transformed through greater economic and social democracy so that ordinary people can participate in many decisions that affect their lives. As I said, this is more accurate for what we're seeing happening in the Democratic Party today. And what I hear from most of the people that support this type of nonsense, as I call it, again, it sounds almost like something that I might be able to buy into, but I don't like big government. Key is stay out of my personal life. I don't need that in my personal life. I don't need the government. So the people that support that type of government, it's all based on Marxist theory, and Marxism is also a form of socialism, but it's actually based on theory and economics, and it has no real solid basis. Often the views of the people that follow Marxism or look at a Marxist type of government, they change direction with the wind. And we'll save that conversation for another show. I don't want to go into what Marxism is and all of the different aspects of it and how it morphs as things change. So just to define capitalism, where we're at today, actually, what people, the government type of government or system that we work on, is an economic system based on private ownership of the means of production and the operation for profit. Central characteristics of capitalism include capital accumulation, competitive markets, a price system, private property and recognition of property rights, voluntary exchange and wage labor. In a capitalist market economy, decision-making and investments are determined by every owner of wealth, property, or production ability in capital and financial markets. I would change that a little bit to say every owner of their wealth. Because we're in a market today where not only if you have $10, you can invest that somewhere in the market. You can save. If you have $100, you can invest in the stock market. There are brokers out there that will take that little bit, and then you just compound it and compound it and compound it. And that is how a lot of times your 401k works. your company will match, and you put in up to 6%. I think was with the bank that I worked for. I could put in up to 6%. They would match that 6%, and it gets invested into a fund, which is a group of stocks. We'll say, I'll pull 3 out of the air: Apple, HP, and Tesla, because they're in the news today. So your company would invest in those stocks for you, and that becomes a fund that you're invested in. And as those do well or not do well, your 401k gains or loses money. So anyhow, I don't want to get too far into that. So the prices and the distribution of goods and services are mainly determined by competition in goods and service markets. That, in a nutshell, is capitalism. It's what we do today. It's the system that we are working under. So all of that being said, now I want to cover just a little bit of why some of these programs do and do not work. Socialism, on paper, it works. Because you and I have control over where that money goes. Okay, so in order for the United States, our country, and what we do now, our system of government would have to drastically change for that to happen. It doesn't work. It works on the surface, but the people make financial decisions and everybody wins, right? Well, let's look at some examples of what it actually is. And I've pulled up some, I got to pull up some examples here. I found them. So, examples of socialism in economic markets, and I found this on yourdictionary.com, and you can find it and you can look it up as well, because it really does put into perspective what socialism is and how it actually works, despite what it seems like on the surface. So the former Soviet Union is an example of a socialist system. They transitioned from a capitalistic system, like we're in right now, to a socialistic government up until 1991. Cuba is an example of a socialist nation. Its economy is state-run, and it lacks a stock exchange. Healthcare and education are all completely managed and administered by the government. Keep listening. Vietnam, the economy is largely state-run and can be considered to be the following socialistic policies. China has elements of socialism that remain despite having eliminated socialized healthcare. The economy is still state-run. Venezuela, government provides a myriad of social programs and can be considered a socialist state. All of these countries so far that we mentioned have major issues, and the ones that are state-run, Vietnam, China, Venezuela, all have huge issues with healthcare, quality of living. I have family in Venezuela, and you can see that. It pains me to see how folks live down there. So there are elements of socialism. One is there's no competition. When it comes to socialism, there are few defining characteristics you notice in socialism. And these include, and I'm reading this directly from the site, no competition. They encourage cooperation rather than competition within the government. Sounds great. Republicans, Democrats, independents, everybody working together inside of our government. Egalitarian society. They create a commitment to social equality for all people. Okay, maybe, maybe not, because not everybody is going to work. Not everybody can work. Not everybody is going to contribute the same amount of energy or finances to the we'll say the government's honeypot, all right, for lack of a better term, the government's account. Public ownership, there's a lack of private ownership and common control within the government system. Many times socialist systems are government run. Well, they have to be. They have to be, because you can't take 300 million people and sit in a room and discuss where your money is going to go. So there has to be an entity in charge of your money to be able to say it's going to go toward this program, or it's going to go toward that program, or it's not. And then those people want to get paid. So, not a lot of people know that our Congress and our Senate used to be volunteer positions. They were never meant to be a career. You were a volunteer. You went to Washington, you served your time, and then you went back home to your family, and then a new group of volunteers came in. One of the other elements is they cover basic needs. The government provides basic needs like health care and education. We'll get back to that. State regulate price control. Since there isn't competition, these countries lack a stock market, and the government controls the prices. Well, here's the problem. If that happens, if that were to ever happen, that we no longer needed a stock market, and people no longer controlled where their wealth went, or their money. And when I say wealth, I'm not talking about billionaires and millionaires. I'm talking about me and you. My paycheck, be it $200 or $200,000, is my wealth. And where I decide to put that money right now in the capitalist society is where I can put it. When you have that type of a government where the state regulates and price control, tells you where you can and can't put your money, doesn't have a stock exchange, how does your country make money? If you have no private ownership in a company and no private investors, which is exactly what happens in this type of a government, how does your government fund itself? On the backs of taxpayers? Well, how is that going to happen if you don't have people paying a decent wage? That means that the government decides what you get paid, when you get paid, if you get paid, and they keep the money. Well, there's no money coming back into it. All it is regurgitating the same paycheck. If the government owns the business I work for, they're going to pay me $200. They're going to tax me on that $200, right? Say 30, or in some cases, in some countries, like Canada, 50%. So now I got $100 to go spend on food and whatever. But the government owns the food stores. They own the farms, which Hillary Clinton had already tried to do this when she tried to regulate the pricing on the flu shot and put one of the companies out of business when she was First Lady. It didn't work. It failed miserably because then there was only one company and there was no competition. She said, you're going to make the flu shot and this is the price you're going to charge for it, and they couldn't do it. So it put all the weight on one company and it failed miserably. So let's go back. I apologize, I'm flipping through screens here. That's part of the reason that socialism doesn't work. So we look at collectivization, the second form of socialism. I'm not going through all the forms of socialism, we're only tackling 3, and that's because they're the closest to what we think socialism is and what we're what the Democrats' agenda actually is. So another kind of socialism, as I said before, is collectivism, and that's in this system, money and goods are shared more equally among the people, with the government in control. In theory, this system results in the gap between classes getting smaller. So this is the first form of socialism that actually mentions the government. Socialism by itself doesn't mention government at all, but we know that we need somebody to manage the amount of money and put it towards programs. So this is collectivization is the first form of socialism that talks about government being in control. So with the state helping the poorest of the people, while the richest agree to higher taxes and economic restrictions. This might seem like where the Democrats are going. That's what they would like you to believe, because you wouldn't know that collectivization is a form of government. You wouldn't even know the word collectivization. I didn't until I looked it up. Now I see, okay, this is what they're trying to tell us they're going to do. It's not actually what their agenda is, and we can tell that because why this doesn't work, again, when you have the perception that the government is going to give you the authority to decide where your money goes, you're mistaken. They're not gonna put everything out to a vote. Your state legislators and representatives are not going to come in and say, okay, I went back to in my case Arizona, and we took a vote on these programs, these social programs, and this is our vote, and this is what we want to do as far as these programs go. They're never going to do that because if Texas doesn't want to do it and Arizona does, they're not going to allow that. They want your money, and they want to make the decision as to where it goes. It's going into this program whether you like it or not. And that's more along the lines of the agenda that they're on. So another form, the third form, which is more closely what we're looking at with the Democratic Party today, is the belief that both the economy and society should be run democratically. Okay, we all get a vote to meet the public needs, not to make profits for a few, to achieve a more just society. Many structures of our government and economy must be radically transformed through greater economic and social democracy so that ordinary people can participate in many decisions that affect their lives. This is more closely, as I said, resembles what the Democratic Party's agenda is, although the reason that this will not work, for many reasons, and the most glaring reason is right in front of your face. If you look at it and you think about what I just said, the power is what they're after. If for 1 second you think the Democrats have a high enough regard and opinion of you and me to make decisions that will govern the country and affect other people, you're hugely mistaken. Hugely mistaken. They are not going to give you or me or any of us decision-making capabilities as to where they want our money to go. They just want more of our money. They don't give us the decision to raise our taxes. They're not going to put that to a vote out to the public. So it's not a democratic society. They call it a democratic socialism because they want, in my opinion, they want you to think that you're getting a decision. Again, they're not going to give up that power, and they don't have that much regard. They don't think that that people are are smart enough. Hillary Clinton was quoted as saying when she was the First Lady, the average American is not smart enough to make their own decisions. They need a government that knows what is best for them and to tell them what is best for them. I took huge offense to that when I heard it, when I saw it, and that was right around the time that she started trying to regulate the flu shot and the pricing. So the Democratic Party thrives on power and larger government. And as of late, the restriction of movement and control over the population. This, I'm not going to define today. I'm not going to go into dictatorship. But when your movements are restricted, that's not socialism. That's dictatorship. That's even different than communism. That's a step above communism. So you never. The problem with a larger government is, and the Democratic Party, is that you never get what you came for. You went to the party, and you were promised everything would be taken care of for you when you got there, and you got there, and it was nothing. But you're still expected to dance, so you vote for promises and health care and cleaner air and the end of fossil fuels and climate control and all of this. Listen, and listen good. What I'm going to tell you right now, none of this will ever happen for you. Okay? The government will never give control to the people to decide where their money's going to go. That's never going to happen. They're never going to allow you to decide what programs it goes to, even by majority vote. Let's say that they did decide to do some kind of a democratic societal vote. You and me, and they bring it to you and me, and they say, hey, we want to fund Planned Parenthood, and I say, I'm not paying for that garbage. And somebody else says, well, I want to fund that. Do you think they're going to let that happen? Absolutely not. If they were going to let it happen, then the free and fair way to do that would be to put the programs on a ballot and say, these are the programs we want to fund, and then you get to check a box and decide where you want your money to go. And that will never happen. They're not going to do it. And I was told when I brought that up that is not fair and it's ridiculous. And the reason they told me that was because the programs that they wanted to fund, they know would never get funded. So they'll never... the elements of socialism we went over, and those elements are the foundation. When we look at capitalism and why it works, it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't need to go into it into too much detail. You have control over your money. You can make as much of it as you want. You can decide where it goes. You still have to pay taxes. The government's still going to decide where it goes, but you can own your property. You can reap the rewards. If you're a farmer, you can reap the rewards of selling your food products, or your rancher, you can sell your beef. A chicken farmer, you can sell your eggs. An oil guru, you can sell your oil. You can drill for it and sell your oil. And that allows you to prosper. Myself, I've always been in business for myself. I saw a brighter light, always wanted to work for myself, so it was $50 in my pocket. I started a business. I was persistent. It was a catering business. I owned roach coaches or lunch trucks, whatever you want to call them. And I had no money. I had literally $50 in my pocket. I went to the food warehouse, and I spoke to a guy, and I said, hey, I want to rent a truck. And he said, okay, come back in a week. I said, okay. I went back, called him the next day, and I said, I really want to rent a truck. He said, well, have you any experience? I said, no. To make a long story short, I went back there every day for a week. He finally says, fine. How much money you got in your pocket to start this? I said, $50. And he said, how are you going to stock your truck? And I said, I will figure it out. He said, fine. There's a truck over there. And he pointed to a truck in the corner of the yard. And I'm going to tell you, when I say it literally had weeds growing up through the floorboard, it did. And it was a hunk. But it ran. So I went, and he gave me the keys, and I jumped into that truck, and he said, good luck. And I spent all that day. This was 7 o'clock in the morning. He came in again at 4:30 the next morning, and I was just finishing up that truck. I cleaned it. I got it running. I fixed the coffee pot, which was, if there was nothing else, I could afford to put coffee on that truck, and I would have sat on the side of the road and just sold coffee and Dunkin' Donuts. So he came in, and he couldn't believe what the truck looked like. It ran. I had everything working, and he says, you did all that? And I said, yeah. He said, how much money you got left? And I said, I got $40, and I put $10 in the truck, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. So I took the truck. He went into the warehouse, and he was talking to the warehouse manager, and I went in, and I bought just what I could with $30, and I kept $10 for change. And Jeff was the warehouse manager, and he said, let's go shopping. And he took a form about this long, and they stocked my truck to the hilt. Everything I could put on that truck, we put on that truck. And I went in and talked to Gene, the guy that owned the warehouse, and he said, I stocked your truck for you. You'll pay off that bill. Normally you pay it at the end of the day, and you'll pay off that bill at $20 a day until it's paid for. It was $289. I said, okay. And I left, and I went to work, and that was about 6:30 now, 7 o'clock, and I came back in at noon, and I handed him the money for the bill and paid it off and restocked my truck. And he couldn't believe it. I was in there in enough time. But you know what? The point is not that I started a business and did well with it. The point is that I had $50 in my pocket, and I worked it until I did well. And everybody has the same opportunity to make money in a capitalist society. If you're a college student and you're being told that socialism is the way to do it, let the government take care of you and take what they have to offer, and everybody's going to make the same amount of money. That's not going to work. There's always going to be different classes, different social classes. There's going to be the guys that don't want to work for themselves. They don't want the headache. There's going to be guys that don't want to work 40 hours. There's going to be guys that only want to work part-time. Well, I can tell you as a business owner, when you put in sometimes 18 hours in a day, and you don't get to go see your family, you deserve to get paid the lion's share, because there's a lot of nights that I sit up. I have two businesses. I work one at night and one during the day, and I sleep in between sometimes. So that's what it takes. And I can't tell you that everybody's going to be going to do well in a capitalist society. Doesn't always happen. As I say, motivation isn't the same for everybody. Physical ability isn't the same for everybody. Mental ability, intelligence, and common sense, and all of the education and all of that factored in, not everybody's going to do well. But I will tell you this: socialism, as they're trying to sell it to you right now, will never work. In order for it to work the way that they are telling you it's got to work, they have to own it. And I can tell you from personal experience and being close to the situation in Venezuela, that when you rely on a government that has no way to bring money into the system collapses. Because they own everything, they can't possibly make money. There's no money coming in from outside sources. If that makes any sense to you, I hope it does. Again, that's a lesson in economics that I don't want to go into right now. I just wanted to pinpoint where we're at, and are we really looking at socialism? In the democratic form, I believe so, the democratic socialism, but we're looking at more than that, because now we're looking, they're trying to keep you at home, they're trying to limit your movement, they're trying to keep you from other people, because what they're trying to do is get you more into a dictatorship. A monarchy is what we left. We left a dictatorship in a different form, but that's what America was founded on, was the freedom from being under a monarchy or a dictatorship, where one person or one small group of people were making all of our decisions. We fought for that. We got away from that. And myself, as an American, intend to keep it that way. If there's anything that I can do to protect my freedom and my rights, I will do it. Because that's what patriotism is. That's what being an American is about. Anyway, I'm going to sign off. I appreciate everybody that's watching. I appreciate any thoughts that you want to put in the chat, or that you want to comment after we're done. We're done here. Listen, do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, or even if you're not, go down, hit the like button, hit the follow button. If you never watch another video, I still would like you to hit the like and follow buttons on the YouTube channel for God and Country. Please be safe. And I want to say a quick prayer for you, and I want to thank God for being a part of my life and being a part of all of our lives. Lord, in Jesus' name, keep people safe. You have millions of people looking to you, Lord. They're praying, and they're asking you to put our country back on the right track. If nothing else comes out of this whole debacle of government election, then at least your people have come back to you, Lord. And the altar call has been heard. And there's millions of people that are sending their prayers up to you, Lord. And I ask you to separate the wheat from the chaff, Lord, and keep us together. Go a step ahead of us, Lord, and whatever it is that your will. I pray that we're following your will, Lord, and I'm not asking you to change your will, but there's enough people out there that are really scared of what's coming. And we understand that this isn't a government issue. It's not Republicans against the Democrats. This is literally good against evil. you have an army down here, Lord, and we praise you, we love you. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name, Lord. Amen. Amen, folks. Listen, I love what I get to do here as amateur as it is. The Lord's blessed me to be able to have the time to do some of this stuff. Not as much time as I'd like to put into it, but please like, share, and follow the page. You guys, we'll see you next time.